So you're looking to add some more bass to your home theater or computer speakers? Well, I'll tell you what, this Polk audio sub packs quite a punch. But is it the right choice for your setup? And by the way, first off, before we get into this review, the white balance might be a little bit off. Added a lamp behind the camera, but I think it's because of the snow we got last night behind me. Also, sponsored by Bud Light now. Hell yeah. Just kidding. So moving back into this review, I'll get into what this powered sub is compatible with in a minute, but first off, let's talk about the packaging. So Polk packed this sub into some nice big foam blocks, and they give it a nice properly sized box, so I got it without any damage, which is great, awesome. I will say though, that box came with no wires in it other than the power cable for the sub, so make sure you get the RCA cables or the speaker wire you need to hook up the subwoofer, because you definitely will need that. And that kind of transitions us pretty nicely into how the sub is compatible and what it's compatible with. Basically, there are two ways to hook up this sub. The way I hooked it up is using RCA cables, which is the easiest and probably the most ideal way to do it. So basically, for any speaker system that has an RCA output, you can hook up the subwoofer to pretty easily. But if you still don't have RCA outputs on your speaker system, you can still hook the subwoofer up via just a regular speaker wire. The sub has both inputs and outputs, so basically after you run the speaker wire to this sub, then you run it back to your speakers like normal, and then you got the subwoofer all the way hooked up. So basically for any sound system you have hooked up with speaker wire going to the speakers, you can hook this up that way. If your sound system doesn't have either RCA outputs or speaker wire going to the speakers, you really can't hook this up too well, so do keep that in mind. And just make sure you have enough space for this subwoofer, because I originally planned on putting it actually underneath this desk, and I had to put it on the outside of it because it takes up a lot of goddamn space. I think it's about a foot and like a third wide and long, and then about a foot or so tall, so keep that in mind. Oh, and by the way, the subwoofer is also not magnetically shielded, which means that it can interfere with some electronics. Usually with subwoofers this big, it's pretty uncommon to have magnetic shielding anyways, so I don't really think it's too big of a deal. Just make sure you don't put it like right next to your computers. In the manual it says 18 inches away from any really vital electronics, so just make sure you do that as well. And by the way, look at Charlie back there. What you doing, buddy? Once you get the subwoofer hooked up and it's ready to go, there's a few nice and very much needed ways to adjust the frequency going to the subwoofer. There is a phase switch, which I just kept at 180 because it seemed to work fine for me. But there's also a low pass knob, which I turned to about half. It actually came full blast whenever I got it. But if you keep it full blast, then it picks up a lot of higher frequencies that you just don't want to hit on the subwoofer. But after adjusting those controls to about half or maybe a little bit under, all the low notes hit perfectly, and none of the other stuff hits on the subwoofer. You know, the speakers do, of course, but it's not like boomy from the subwoofer, so it sounds pretty well balanced. On the back of the subwoofer, you'll also notice an off-on switch, but it actually has a middle setting too. That's the auto switch. So the auto mode will keep the subwoofer off until it gets a signal, and then it'll turn the subwoofer off automatically after 15 minutes that it hasn't been getting a signal. And by the way, this feature works really well. I've been using it basically the whole time I've had the subwoofer. It's pretty awesome, and it's really great that you still have the dedicated on mode in case you just want to keep it on all the time. So great move, Polk Audio. Alright, so the subwoofer is all hooked up and ready to go, but how about the actual performance? The subwoofer hits all spectrums of bass pretty nicely, but in particular it hits the really higher bass notes really great. I mean, I have two 12-inch Alpine Type R subs in my car, and I kind of think that this subwoofer hits the higher bass notes even better than those big-ass subs. That said, this subwoofer doesn't hit the lowest of the low bass notes quite as well as like my 12-inch subs in my car. The subwoofer certainly still hits those notes enough to really feel them in the floor and everything. It's just not crazy.
This twisted cat and mouse game always starts the same. First we're both down a plate and somehow you go astray. We went from nothing to something, like in a lovely. It was us against the world, and now we just fucking. It's like I loved you so much.
But you know, in my experience, that is pretty typical of indoor subwoofers anyway, which is honestly fine with me. I'd rather have tight, accurate bass indoors rather than some boomy bass that honestly kind of hurts your ears after a while. So this subwoofer maybe sounds better, I think, for the indoor, you know, listening habits and everything than just slamming, you know, crazy bass. Overall, I was pretty damn impressed with this subwoofer. It wasn't too expensive, and it just fucking slams, especially those higher bass notes. I mean, damn, it shakes like the fucking paintings on my wall, like everything. It's crazy. The cats think it's pretty wild too. Subwoofers that came come pre-made with sound systems, you know, they're not too bad, but they honestly don't compare a lick with this subwoofer. It's just absolutely crazy. So if you want loud ass fucking bass that honestly sounds good even if you have it low and everything, you want the Polk Audio PSW121, I guess? I'll call it that. And with that said, I hope this review was pretty helpful to you guys. If it was, be sure to drop a like on the review because that does help me out. It also means a lot to me. And also subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this, unboxings, gaming news, and all that cool stuff. And comment below what you guys think about the subwoofer. Honestly, it's pretty fucking crazy. I don't know if you guys noticed, I have it on my Audio A2 Plus speakers, and it just, oh man, it's a complete sound system. It's loud as shit, and it sounds great too. It's pretty fucking awesome. But beyond that, I hope you guys have a great motherfucking day, and I'll see you crazy motherfuckers later. Peace out.